All right, welcome to what seem to be becoming some of the favorite episodes of Inappropriate Earl, and that is a week where I can unfortunately not line up a guest. So I have to basically interview myself for the next hour or so. And this is going to be a pretty easy one because, as many of you know, I am a big pro wrestling fan. And this past weekend was what is basically the Super Bowl of pro wrestling. Actually, it's a huge weekend for pro wrestling. Wrestlemania weekend, Wrestlemania 31. In addition to the Super Bowl like card on Sunday, you get the Hall of Fame inductions in on Saturday night, which is kind of cool. You know, like the NFL, they do their Hall of Fame inductions, I think, in something like late July, early August. And then the Super Bowl is 7 or 8 months away. I think it'd be cool if they did it like the WWE did and did it all in the same weekend. So make those Hall of Fame inductees, feel a little more special, like the WWE wrestlers did and do, the ones that are still alive anyway. And I think that's like, kind of a weird thing to have a Hall of Fame for a sports entertainment where the results are kind of like already known. I got into an argument recently with a friend who's like, well, Ric Flair should be in the Hall of Fame, and he already is, because he won the world title 16 times. And I'm like, dude, the writer who wrote those 16 outcomes should be in the Hall of Fame too. So, and then we argued whether Rikishi should be in the Hall of Fame, and we got into a really passionate debate about his accomplishments and whether they're Hall of Fame worthy. And then we both looked each other in the eyes and realized that we were arguing about basically a fictional Hall of Fame. So that argument ended real fast. But this year's inductees were pretty cool. You had the Bushwhackers, you had, Medusa, who gave maybe one of the top speeches of all time. And that's saying something. I mean, last year's speeches were great. Jake the Snake Roberts, Ultimate Warrior. But this year's were really cool. You also had Kevin Nash inducted by Shawn Michaels. So that was kind of interesting, especially given what would happen 24 hours later in Sting's match where, apparently between the Hall of Fame induction and Sting and Triple H's match, Shawn Michaels and Kevin Nash had a beef. So we'll cover what happened in that match later. And, the Hall of Fame, it's just a great, the WWE, they may kill their wrestlers early, but they give them great tributes when they do die. And it was a very sad Hall of Fame induction, with a young boy who had died of cancer. And Daniel Bryan gave a great speech. It's kind of a weird speech because he basically said, not in these words, but kind of threw it out there that, hey, what we do pro wrestling is fake, but this is real life. And I'm sure that made Vince McMahon's heart beat a little faster. And, it's just a great ceremony that sets up the closing act of WrestleMania 31. And I really enjoyed the card, minus one match. I think you guys can all guess which one that is, as we'll cover it. We'll go in order of the matches, and it's a long day, man. And let me throw this out there, and I don't think I'm the first person to throw this out there. I hate WrestleMania starting in the daytime. It just makes it look like kind of like when you go to those concerts, like when I went to Rocklahoma in 2007, and you're seeing some great bands like Y&T and Black and Blue playing at like 2 in the afternoon. And I think if you know who these bands are, you kind of feel sorry for them because you're like, Jesus Christ, it's 2 PM. No one's really in the zone right now to enjoy you guys. And if you don't know who these bands are, you're a little younger. You walk in going, oh, these guys must suck. So really felt sorry for Y&T because at 2 PM in Pryor, Oklahoma, and if you've ever been to Pryor, Oklahoma in the summertime in July, it's fucking hot. So, they were wearing full leather and just looking like they were in a steam room the whole time. And I don't mean the steam rooms at my gym. Trust me on that one. Although Y&T are from around the San Francisco area, so watch out. Thank you, Dave Menichetti. I'll see you at the steam room at 24 Hour Fitness by Cobb's Comedy Club, where I opened up for Rob Schneider. Killed it. See, notice how I gave myself a little plug. But you kind of felt that way on the pre-show matches, which the first one was the tag team champion belts were on the line, and some great wrestlers, man. You had Tyson Kidd and Cesaro. You had New Day, Los Matadors, the Usos, and just some great spots, man. I mean, some just ECW like spots, and half the people weren't in the stadium. So you kind of just felt that all the contestants and that was like, hey, not necessarily half the crowd's not here, fuck it, but they just seemed to really all give it their all, and it showed. And it's a shame that the stadium wasn't full for these guys. And Natalia also, who is the valet of Kid and Cesaro. But some great spots there. A great way to open the show. Not the main card, but a really, really just a fantastic spot fest. So I think it's the perfect way to start the card. Get everyone into it, and then Cesaro and Tyson Kidd retain their belts. And, I think the WWE is trying to slowly rebuild the tag team champion bracket. For some reason, the last decade, basically, no one's really cared much about the tag team belts. But, so many wrestlers under contract, I think it's a pretty smart decision to rebuild that part of the show, especially since Raw is 3 hours, SmackDown's, I think, 2 hours. I never watch it. So that's 5 hours of programming, and you can't have Lesnar, and who's a part-timer, basically, and you can't have it all be the top guys and girls on the show. So you got to build a mid-card, and I think the tag team division certainly fits into that mid-card range. But so hopefully it's an interesting. There's probably 6 to 8 tag teams, so there's some freshness to it with teams like the Ascension, who don't seem to be going over well, but maybe people are getting a little bit more used to them. Hopefully, and who knows what's down in NXT, which is all the rave right now in the wrestling world because there's a lot of talent down there. And that is, for those of you not knowing, basically the minor league system for the WWE. And also, who knows, Samoa Joe, who's not with TNA anymore. I think he's with Ring of Honor right now. He might be coming in. So it'll be interesting to see if he's... of course, I don't think he'd be in the tag team division, but there's a lot of talent on the way to, basically take the place of some of the older guys who, aren't going to be around for much longer. So we'll see what happens in 2015, the tag team division. Hopefully some good stuff. And then, of course, the second match on the warm-up part of the show, I guess you'd call it, was the Andre the Giant Battle Royal, Memorial Battle Royal. And, it's basically, a lot of mid-carders and, just filler, I guess you'd say. I mean, you had guys like Adam Rose and Fandango and Alex Riley, Bo Dallas, Zack Ryder, Kane, Sin Cara, Cesaro and Tyson Kidd, came back for double duty. Mark Henry, The Ascension, Ryback, Goldust, Eric Rowan, The Miz, Mizdow, and Big Show. And it was I think probably the biggest storyline to come out of this was something that a lot of people were hoping for, and I do think the WWE did a very good job of kind of making this storyline build a little bit. Usually they rush through things and it ends up not good, but the turn of Mizdow on Miz, as Mizdow was the one who eliminated Miz and setting up the Big Show winning the battle royal in memory of Andre the Giant, which is kind of funny. A lot of fans didn't like it. I think they were craving for a newer newer guy to win it. It's like Big Show. He's been around forever. He's kind of up and down in his WWE career. When he was in WCW, you just thought, my God, this guy's going to be the next Andre the Giant. And I think even originally, I don't know if I forget, to be completely honest, if it was WCW or when he first went to WWE, they were building him as Andre the Giant's son. And outside of their enormous size, they really don't look a lot alike. So it'll be interesting to, I don't even know what the hell happens, for the winner of this. I don't think really anything. It's not like there was anything on the line. And then that was it for the pre-show. So a good start to the pre-show. It's kind of like seeing, if you ever go see a big stand-up comic, Dave Chappelle or Rob Schneider or, Jeff Ross, obviously everyone's there to see them, but, some of the opening acts are very funny. And so you get to open the show with some talent. So I think the pre-show matches serve their purpose, although I do wish that more people could have seen them. And then the main card starts. And I don't know who, I'm not going to lie and say I know who sang America the Beautiful. Aloe Black. I'm an 80s metalhead, so unless it's Stephen Pearcy or Vince Neil singing the national anthem, I don't really, it was okay. At this point of the early evening, the stadium was pretty full. So, good job, I guess. But, the first match on the card was, you start to see the talent level and the characters that we have a little more loyalty to show up, because it was the ladder match for the Intercontinental title. And you had Bad News Barrett, Dean Ambrose, Luke Harper, Stardust, Dolph Ziggler, Daniel Bryan, and R-Truth in a ladder match. And, that's just a fantastic roster of guys. And a few guys like R-Truth doesn't really get the credit that I think he should get, because he's always doing comedy characters and acting like a goof, but he's a great wrestler. And, obviously Daniel Bryan, Ziggler, are great. And Dean Ambrose, they're fantastic guys. And Bad News Barrett, I think, has come a long way since the leader of Nexus. And, Luke Harper, for a big guy, can move pretty well. And he's a great character. And Stardust, is kind of like falls into that R-Truth character where, they're playing comedy roles. And, I guess when you're playing Goldust's evil brother, you're not going to be taken too seriously as a wrestler, but he's really good and a great wrestler. Obviously his dad, Dusty Rhodes, there's pedigree in that family for talent. It's kind of funny. Goldust and Stardust don't get credit for being, pretty good wrestlers. And their dad, who was a pretty good wrestler himself, but, because he was a fat slob and, spoke jive, you know, didn't really, get the credit for being as talented as they were. It's kind of like the 80s metal, band members who, you take a guy like C.C. DeVille from Poison, was a, classically trained guitar player, but, that really wasn't paying the bills in the 80s. So he dyes his hair blonde, starts playing, pink fucking guitars, and, starts making millions. But, the reality was he was pretty talented and is a talented guitar player. So, such is life in the world of wrestling. And you talk about a spot fest of spot fest by some just greatly skilled guys. This was it. The WWE, that I think their bread and butter matches are, ladder matches in Hell in the Cell. And this was just awesome. I must give the WWE credit here. Just, high spot after high spot. Harper getting put into a sleeper by Ziggler as he's climbing up the ladder. Barrett just executed a huge superplex on Stardust off the tall ladder. And, Ambrose taking these crazy bumps. And it was a fun match. And, I thought Ziggler would win. But Daniel Bryan grabbed the title. And, he's... I think it basically boiled down to Ziggler and Bryan, but, Bryan's pretty hot right now. And nice little segment at the end that he had with Ricky Steamboat, who looked like he was completely lost. He didn't know what the hell was going on. He looked like the Ronnie from Jersey Shore reading the cue cards in the Zinedine commercial, and just a horrible Macho Man impression. And then Ric Flair looks like he just took a few bumps, and he's got fucking liver spots on his forehead, and his eyes are all bug-eyed. But it was a fun segment, and I think it kind of, for the older wrestling fans like me, kind of validates Daniel Bryan, if the older guys are giving him props. And we then go right into Randy Orton and Seth Rollins, who I just love. I mean, I'm just the biggest Seth Rollins fan, because I think he has really perfected the kind of cowardly heel. And I just think that he's really, now that has what appears to be Lesnar, kind of being almost like a good bad guy. One of the rare cases where the crowd actually roots for the bad guy to a degree, and it's hard to portray him as a sympathetic bad guy, but he's seems to be headed that route. And I think Rollins is just he just makes you hate him, especially how he acted the following night on Raw. He just is he's the bad guy for the new era of pro wrestling. And Orton, he's kind of like, last couple years has been at the top of the card, but he seems to have plateaued a little bit. And for whatever reason, he I don't think the WWE really knows what to do with him. I mean, he seemed to peak in Evolution and the Legend Killer gimmick. He was actually the first guy I wanted Sting to battle, because I thought, that'd be a great angle. The Legend Killer against the last remaining legend you didn't beat, but they went another direction with Sting. One that I am not happy with, but that's commentary will come in the next match. But Orton and Rollins, they have good chemistry, and a lot of great attempts on both finishing moves. Rollins with the curb stomp and Orton with the RKO. Orton, is obviously his dad, Cowboy Bob Orton. So, there's pedigree in that family for good matches, and some good spots in this match with Orton landing a lot of these like forearm uppercuts early on in the match, and he eliminated J&J Security with a double DDT outside the ring, which was kind of a cool spot. And Rollins had some great spinning moves off the top rope, including one from on the edge of the ring where he basically flew himself into Orton in this wild twisting maneuver. And they had a good chemistry. You could tell they were in sync with each other from word one. And just an outstanding match. Crowd was super into it. And kind of surprising that Orton got the win, because you just think that, it's hard to guess how WWE is going to book things. It's they seem to sometimes have no rhyme or reason. And I would definitely thought Rollins would win here, but the great finish to the match as Orton delivered these two fantastic RKOs on J&J Security, because they resuscitated all of a sudden and got back into the match. And then Rollins went to do the foot stomp, and Orton somehow miraculously turned it into an RKO and got the win. So this was, I think, the start of the peak of the card. That the ladder match was awesome as well, but this was like, okay, WrestleMania is live now. And then we get to Sting and Triple H, which if you would have told me that Sting, after basically shunning the WWF, WWE for his whole career, had many opportunities to join and didn't, especially after he became a reborn Christian. I really don't think Sting was into the Attitude Era. I don't think he was into the bra and panties matches and, Mae Young giving birth to Mark Henry's hand, stuff like that. I think he's like, I'll just go to TNA and do my thing there. And, if you would have told me that he would join the WWE and then lose to Triple H, I would have been like, you're crazy. There's no way. And that's exactly what happened. And I'm assuming Sting had the creative control to put the kibosh on any storyline like that. I don't know what the WWE promised him, because you just have to assume that he'll wrestle at least probably one more match next year against The Undertaker. And there's no way Vince McMahon would let a WCW man beat The Undertaker in his final match. So I don't see Sting joining to go 0-2 in his WWE career, which is what made the results of WrestleMania 31 unbelievable to me. I mean, it started off kind of cool. The entrances were cool. I mean, at one point, and I don't think I'm the first person to say this, but, Sting came out to a percussion entrance, I guess you'd call it, making people believe that the Great Muta or Mr. Fuji was going to come out. And, I'm not sure where all of a sudden Sting's Japanese roots came into play. But, like I said previously, I would have liked this entrance a lot more in the nighttime, because I think it lost a little bit of its appeal in broad daylight. And, Mr. Miyagi was leading the way on drums. And then you had, various people in Sting getup doing a, drum beat that you assumed King Kong would come crashing through the far end of the stadium. And Sting came out, great pop, although I'm not sure how many of the younger fans still know who he is. And then Triple H came out, of course, to the better entrance, this wild Terminator-like, he had like a mask on and all that shit. And, Schwarzenegger basically intros him. And, it was the funny thing is it was the longest match on the card at 18 minutes. And if you would have, I think, polled anyone who would have the shorter match on the card, it probably would have been this match given the age of the participants. I mean, Sting just turned 56, Triple H is 45, but the reality is that his body is probably 65, and which might explain the run-ins and stuff that they had later on in the match. And it was a good match. I mean, for two guys, I think Triple H respects Sting enough to, sell for him. And obviously, I'm sure Sting knows who he's in the ring with, basically the head guy. Sting basically delivered his moves, the Stinger Splash, the Scorpion Deathlock, the Scorpion Death Drop, Triple H delivered the pedigree and Sting got out of it, which I was surprised that, you make Sting look strong in doing that. And then what I thought was just completely unnecessary was all the run-ins. At one point, DX comes out, Sting beats up on them, and then a storyline that made absolutely no sense is the NWO Black and White comes out to save Sting, which, if you're an older fan, that Sting hated the NWO Black and White and always was battling them. So I don't know what the hell happened. And now I realize this is a fictional storyline, so I'm probably overanalyzing it. And then Shawn Michaels, super kicks Sting, and it's like, all right, well, Shawn Michaels just inducted Kevin Nash into the Hall of Fame less than 24 hours ago. Now all of a sudden they're enemies again. So it just seemed like the writers were like, let's throw enough shit against the wall and see what sticks. And I just think the run-ins weren't very good. I mean, to see Hall, Nash, and Hulk Hogan take bumps. First of all, their run-in was more like a geriatric walk-in. I've seen three-legged dogs move faster than those three guys. And, I did like the Shawn Michaels super kick on Sting because the way the camera work was, you didn't see Shawn Michaels into the frame until the super kick happened. But, I just think a better play would have been almost if you had DX and the NWO come out, start attacking Sting, Triple H is about to pin him, and then all of a sudden Goldberg's music hits. Who was a true WCW creation, product guy, whatever you want to call him. He cleans the ring, and then, Sting gets the win. Because here's the problem with the, Triple H winning is that, Triple H, win or lose, the next day is still Triple H the badass. And now with Sting losing the next day, and it's obvious with what he did on Raw, it's just now another dude who lost to Triple H, versus if he would have won, his character is totally set up for the next year, whether you have him just fight The Undertaker at WrestleMania 32 in Texas, or you have him in select pay-per-views, Royal Rumble, SummerSlam, has the badass that beat Triple H. So I just don't understand the logic there. You make a huge deal the last 4 months of bringing Sting in, just to have him essentially job to Triple H with horrible run-ins. It makes no sense at all. And then, the next night on Raw is basically after Raw. I mean, Sting doesn't even get the fucking respect of appearing on the program. I mean, you've got 3 fucking hours to fill. How about forget the goddamn Divas segment, or, you know, Adam Rose and his band of rabbits and you know, animals, and give Sting a couple minutes to, you know, you could have had him, I don't know, at the very least, you know, beat up Kane or something to make him look strong. Instead, you have him appear on the WWE network after Raw's over, and he gives fucking Bo Dallas, you know, who's like basically on the level of the Brooklyn Brawler, a Scorpion Death Drop. And I don't know what the writers are thinking, how that makes Sting look, you know. And it also didn't make Sting look good, to be completely honest with you, when Triple H, you know, 40 minutes later is in a segment with The Rock in suit and tie, you know, looking fresh and good. I mean, I actually like the segment, but it like totally devalues the match that Triple H just had with Sting. It makes Sting look like, you know, just a jobber. So I'm not sure what the WWE promised him. I mean, I'm assuming that, you know, in part, Sting came to the WWE to get the video rights and DVD packages, and I'm assuming he'll get in the Hall of Fame next year. But I'm assuming they'll put him in the Hall of Fame after he wins something. I mean, you can't have the guy come in and go 0-1. And I also didn't like how JBL kind of shit on Sting the whole match. It's like JBL is a fucking mid-carder at best, who the only reason he got any kind of a push, literally, was that he was giving Vince McMahon good stock tips. So at this point, why not have Jim Cramer win a belt? You know, the guy from fucking Mad Money on MSNBC, which their ratings make CNN look like a fucking juggernaut. So, you know, I think at one point JBL said, "Hey, Sting, this isn't Starrcade." So it was like a total, you know, they totally buried Sting. So, you know, I'm pissed. But then again, it's scripted entertainment. So what the hell do I care? So that was the third match. And, you know, it was okay. You know, I'm just disappointed. I mean, overall, I liked WrestleMania. I just didn't, you know, if you take out the Sting Triple H thing, I give it a 9 out of 10. But, you know, onward and upward to the next match. But before we get to the next match, they had a musical interlude of sorts. Skylar Grey, Travis Barker, and Kid Ink, who I've never heard of before, but what do I know? Gray sang Rise, and Kid Ink sang Money and the Power, and you know, it just was kind of a time waster. And I know that later on some of the segments had to be cut because they were running out of time. I just don't think live music goes over well at WrestleMania. You know, it's kind of like a comic doing their act in between music acts on a show. It usually never works out. So I just thought this was kind of a time killer. And I thought, you know, although you knew certainly that Sting and Triple H's, you know, entrances would be elaborate. You know, I don't know about the drum solo for Sting. And, you know, Triple H's Terminator intro took up a big amount of time. And not to mention the horrible walk-ins by, you know, wrestlers who were literally, you know, I think literally a combined, everyone in the ring at the end of the Sting Triple H match was, I think someone added it up to be like close to 500 years old. And please, for the love of God, WWE, if you ever do have Sting in another match, you got to fix that fucking hair, man. He looked like Jack Nicholson in The Joker, you know, bald spots everywhere. And, you know, between that and, you know, Ric Flair's liver spots and, you know, Pat Patterson looking lost without any 12-year-olds around him. You know, I mean, Piper looked good, but, you know, he takes care of himself. So, you know, I just thought it could have been a little tighter, as they say. And then you had the fourth match on the card was AJ Lee and Paige taking on the Bella Twins. And kind of a short match, but to be honest with you, one of the better matches, women's matches, I think I've seen. A lot of good spots and, high energy. The crowd was kind of into it. I mean, I realize, I'm not a big fan of, women wrestling and stuff because I just, it's kind of like watching an NBA game and then watching, a WNBA game. It just, I don't know, doesn't do it for me. But, the women are incredible athletes, but I just, I don't know. It's just kind of a time killer. But this was a good match. And, AJ Lee and Paige beat the Bella Twins, which is kind of surprising. And, because the Bella Twins are basically the face of certainly Total Divas, which is one of the worst shows I think ever unscripted. But it's on E, so that doesn't surprise me. I mean, I get the feeling if I walked into the E offices with a blank piece of paper, I would get a time slot. So, kind of set up the next match, got the crowd going after the long Sting Triple H match for Cena and Rusev. I like Rusev. He harkens back to, the stereotypical Russian bad guy. And, Cena is, kind of like a, Mr. America, but, he's kind of almost in that Roman Reigns mode where people don't like him. And they're kind of stuck because the kids like him and they sell a lot of merchandise, but the adults don't like him. So it's kind of a weird thing that you have Rusev obviously playing the heel, but, Cena kind of getting that good guy heel heat. And, but both guys are great athletes. And this match didn't disappoint. It was, well scripted. But, I mean, let's be honest. Who cares about a well-scripted match when you have Lana ringside, who is Rusev's valet? They're kind of taking Rusev back old school to the days where, a wrestler who maybe wasn't that good on the mic, needed some eye candy, if you will. And she is beautiful. Think, Bridget Nielsen and Rocky IV, which I'm guessing they made her watch on loop for hours and hours to get the voice down and the cunty attitude. And she's great. And Rusev and Cena was actually a pretty good match. Very, very, both guys got in power moves. The accolade was put on Cena. Cena was the first guy to break out of it. Cena did an attitude adjustment and, a lot of power kicks and clotheslines. And, they seem to have actually pretty good chemistry. And as, of course, the WWE never wanting a match to end clean, they have Lana get to the edge of the apron on the top. Cena sees her. Rusev gets mad. He rushes Cena. Cena miraculously gets out of the way. Lana goes to the, floor, hurting her ankle. And then Cena puts the attitude adjustment and pin Rusev to win the WWE United States Championship for a fourth time. Which is somewhat a historic match because he was the first person to pin Rusev. And so we don't know where the feud goes from here. Probably is, you could have them battle a few more months. And I think their matches would only get better. But Rusev's a talent, no doubt about it. I'm sure he's not from the Ukraine. He's likely from the Ukraine about as likely as Kamala was from Uganda, who I actually think he was from like South Carolina. But hey, what the hell? It's, you know, it's pro wrestling. I'm probably overanalyzing this stuff too much. And then we got a pretty cool segment in between the Rusev Cena match and the Undertaker Bray Wyatt match. Triple H and Stephanie McMahon came down to the ring, and pretty quick heel promo about they own all the divas and wrestlers in the back. Triple H spouts off how he owned Sting, and as you can tell, this broadcast is very heavy on Sting stuff, but this segment even buries Sting, because how does it make Sting look that, literally 25 minutes after your match with Triple H, he's in the ring again in a suit and tie looking like, he just got a facial and a deep tissue massage. And, it just makes you look like a complete jobber to him. But, I got to move on. And probably the surprise of the night, The Rock comes out to face two members of the Authority. And, The Rock's great on the mic, and he's looking very bulked up. Very surprising that he was even here, because, this is in San Jose, San Francisco area. The Rock hosted Saturday Night Live less than 24 hours ago. So he got on someone's private jet ASAP. If he got on Lufthansa, he probably would have crashed somewhere. And, Stephanie McMahon kicks him out of the ring. And I thought it was a pretty cool moment. Rock sheepishly gets out of the ring, walks around. And very good camera work on this one. Even though it was known she was ringside, The Rock slowly walks around halfway the ring, stops, backs up, and the camera focuses in on UFC women's champ Ronda Rousey, and the crowd's yelling Ronda Rousey, and she jumps the barricade, goes with Rock into the ring, puts Triple H in a judo throw, and then put Ronda put Stephanie in a arm bar, which is her big move for those of you who aren't into the UFC. Pretty quick segment, but I got the crowd going. And then we got to maybe the most anticipated match of the night, which was Bray Wyatt and The Undertaker. And it kind of a bizarre entrance for Bray Wyatt. Is he comes out, and he's being kind of surrounded by people who look like zombies, or I don't know, homeless scarecrows. And then The Undertaker came out to kind of at least for him anyway, a somewhat nondescript intro, slowly walking down. And, we got up, when he got up to the ring and got into the ring itself, and, he had his leather jacket on and hat, and I think people were really curious to see what he looked like. And he took off the hat and has a, relatively decent sized amount of hair. Certainly a hairline much better than Sting's, who looked like, Edward Scissorhands and the Scarecrow, 2 minutes into his match, and, looked pretty healthy. That was the concern after the beating he took last year with Lesnar. He, concussion, I think, halfway through the match, and literally had to, take a year off. And, I think he's 50, 51, but he's probably, the reality is an old 50, 51, given the amount of punishment and Hell in the Cell matches that he's had over the years. His body probably is literally that of a 70-year-old. But he looked pretty healthy. And according to various online reports, Bray Wyatt suffered a severely sprained ankle earlier in the week getting ready for this match. So that might have helped the match. So apparently at some points he couldn't even stand and was in a boot up until walking out. And, probably made him wrestle at The Undertaker's pace. And, it was a fairly laborious match. Both guys got in their shots. Undertaker landed a few boots, corner shots, both guys. Uh, Wyatt had a couple huge clotheslines, and Undertaker had a pretty cool move. I thought where he got on the top rope as Wyatt his neck was exposed on the outside part of the apron, and he did like a drop kick. Fairly dangerous move for a guy who's as banged up as the Undertaker is. A couple tombstone pile drivers, which Bray Wyatt got out of. Undertaker actually kicked out of a Sister Abigail, which is Wyatt's finishing move. But you can only escape one too many tombstone pile drivers, which is still a very dangerous move. I mean, the Undertaker's probably the only one allowed to win the match by doing that move, because I'm telling you, man, your neck is dropped so close to the ground at full force that you really have to do it correctly. And, even the Undertaker is, probably prone to a mistake here and there, but he delivered his pile drivers flawlessly. And, he ended up getting back on a WrestleMania winning streak, which I don't know. It's like, I don't know if it made sense Lesnar beating The Undertaker last year. It probably would have made more sense if you had Bray Wyatt beat him this year. Because now Wyatt's lost 2 WrestleManias in a row. The last 4 months or whatever it's been, 2 to 4 months. I'm not going to lie, I don't watch every Raw. And pretty much the last couple months I've watched just to see if Sting would show up. But you've positioned Bray Wyatt as essentially the new Undertaker, and he lost in a pretty nondescript match to him, so it's going to be very hard to package him as the new Undertaker when you kind of had him lose a fairly routine match to him. But this is the world of pro wrestling, so no one knows. Which leads us to the main event, and this is a very interesting main event, because you've pretty much ever since Brock Lesnar, it's Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns, by the way. Ever since Brock has been in the WWE, he's been positioned as the baddest man on the planet, and he probably is one of the baddest men. Sans Alistair Overeem, who gave him a liver kick. And if you watch UFC, you know that when Overeem delivered this liver kick, you could actually see Lesnar mouth, "Ouch." And when you make Brock Lesnar say "ouch," you might be the baddest guy on the planet. So it's he's kind of like a good bad guy. And I think they've been forced to paint him in almost a face role in this match, because for whatever reason, the WWE universe just does not like Roman Reigns. He gets booed constantly. And that's got to kill Vince McMahon, because they clearly pushed Reigns. And, Reigns started out with the Shield with Ambrose and Rollins. And, they really broke up the Shield probably like they should have, when they were still on top and kicking ass, versus like, say, the NWO, which went on way too long. I mean, the NWO was not good when fucking Virgil and, Scott Norton, I even think toward the end Horace Hogan was in it. And, I think people still to this day are like, man, I wish the Shield stayed together. And that's always a sign they broke it up at the right time. But I think in the perfect world, Vince McMahon would have loved the crowd to get behind Roman Reigns. And, it'd be a typical almost 80s like bad guy versus good guy. So I'm sure there was much debate on what to do with this match. I mean, do you put the belt on Reigns, who would probably instantly become the most hated champion of all time? WCW, WWE, ECW, TNA, the, UHF, VHF, whatever. Or do you put it on a part-timer, or you keep it on a part-timer in Lesnar. And, that's really the fans' biggest beef with Lesnar is he's not on every Monday Night Raw. He's not, I don't think he's ever been on SmackDown to my knowledge, but he might have been, I'm guessing on that. And he, shows up here and there on a pay-per-view. So, it's, I'm sure the writers and Vince and Triple H went back and forth on this one. And, this was a great match. I'll be honest with you. It probably had the least amount of enthusiasm from the standpoint of what these two guys could deliver. But for two guys who are incredibly strong, they're great athletes. I mean, if you've ever seen, just to briefly delve into Brock Lesnar's UFC career, he might have the greatest, and this is very debatable and arguable. He might have the greatest fight card of anyone in the UFC, because outside the first guy he fought, which was, some Japanese dude, it was probably a gimme fight for him. I'm sure the dude's a badass, but, I'm sure they gave Lesnar this guy, get your feet wet and, we'll figure it out. And then after that, it was, Heath Herring, Randy Couture, Frank Mir, Junior Dos Santos. I mean, he only fought champions. And, when Heath Herring is the worst guy in your fight card, that's a pretty good card. So he's a fantastic athlete. And Roman Reigns, we spoke a lot in this podcast about, Randy Orton being able to deliver a good match because who his dad is, and Stardust and Goldust being able to deliver great matches because of, who their father is. And, Reigns comes from the, Samoan dynasty in the WWE. So he's an incredible athlete. He's got the look, great hair, very good looking guy, great body. I sound pretty gay right now, but I think the knock on him is, one, he's not very good on the mic, comes off a little stiff in interviews, and he's got no gas tank. So it's kind of hard to make him the champion when he, literally 5-6 minutes into the match, he's because he's so muscular that he, kind of can't do some wackier moves toward the end of the match, which is typically when all the wackier moves happen. But, if I'm hoping that he gained a lot of respect, as he should in this match, from the marks and the hardcore fans, because Lesnar, my God, gave him a beating. I think I lost count at 10 suplexes. And, these are very much like the suplexes Chris Benoit would deliver, but delivered by a guy who's literally probably almost a foot taller than Benoit, and probably one of the few guys in wrestling history who's, you could say, is twice as strong as Benoit. So you can imagine what one suplex would feel like, let alone 10, a few F5s. Reigns got in some offense too. I think he actually cut Lesnar with the first punch he threw. Because as soon as I think a minute into the match, they had this little exchange where they were throwing punches, and Lesnar looks up and he's got a pretty big welt on his left eye / cheekbone area. And it wouldn't surprise me, Lesnar being such a badass in his UFC background, if he said to Reigns, "Hit me once for real, so it'll look good." And then later on in the match, he went headfirst into a ring post, and pretty nice gash that caused a fair amount of blood, at least by this era standards. There's a couple rumors online that the ref handed him something to blade, which, as you know, it's hard to talk about what's legal and illegal in a predetermined sport. But, the WWE, ever since they tried to become a more family-oriented product, I think somewhat forbids their wrestlers to blade each other. And for those of you who aren't familiar with that, it's when a wrestler takes a razor blade and usually cuts their forehead area. The forehead, other than the penis, has the most blood vessels in your body. So if you cut yourself around your hairline, or maybe if you ever look at Triple H's forehead, you'll notice he's got divots in it. Looks like a tire with some deep grooves drove across his forehead several hundred times. That's all from the results of blading. And if you ever have the pleasure of going to Abdullah's Ribs in Atlanta, Georgia, you will see probably the greatest blader of all time, the legendary Abdullah the Butcher, who never really made it to the big time. He was in the South wrestling scene, territories for a long time. I think he got to WCW. He might have even been in WWE for a little bit, but he was too wild for them. I mean, he would just blade and take a cheese grater to his forehead. I mean, he was like billed from being from the Sudan, and much like Kamala and Rusev, I'm pretty sure Abdullah the Butcher was from like South Carolina. But go to Abdullah's Ribs. He's literally working behind the counter. And so this was a good match, though, and a great ending. Both guys getting in their power shots, but I would say, Lesnar probably delivered most of the punishment, and it's kind of a nice crescendo here where Lesnar did two German suplexes and literally his third F5, but Reigns somehow kicked out, and the crowd's booing. So Lesnar throws Reigns into the ringside steps. Reigns then executes his finishing move. He's known for the Superman punches, and he's headbutting Lesnar, and then a third Superman punch, and then he executes a spear. Lesnar's already on his feet after the spear, so he eats a second spear, and then Lesnar kicks out, and then you knew this was happening, but it was still pretty cool to see where Seth Rollins' music hits. He runs down to the ring with his Money in the Bank, so he's cashing in on the Money in the Bank. The theory being these two guys are exhausted, so he'll get the easy win. And Reigns, he gives Reigns the curb stomp, but Reigns kicks out. He then attempts a second curb stomp, but Lesnar puts Rollins up in an F5. Reigns spears Lesnar, and then Rollins gets Reigns in a curb stomp and pinned him for the WWE World Championship. Even though Lesnar was the champion, this was basically a three-way match. So all you had to do was pin anyone, and you win the title. And that was pretty much the end of WrestleMania. And Seth Rollins is a great heel. He's kind of reminds me a little bit of Shawn Michaels. He's not like the biggest guy, but he's very well built and very athletic, and he's got that cowardly heel, like I said earlier, character just down to perfection. Because the next night on Raw, Lesnar chased him around, and he ran away from him in the crowd. And so that's, you really could go either way here. And then Lesnar was suspended for not only destroying the announcer's table, knocking Booker T unconscious, and putting Michael Cole in an F5, who took a nice bump. I'll give Cole that. And then Lesnar, gave an F5 to the camera guy, who was clearly, he looked like an independent wrestler. I don't even think the fucking camera was probably on. And then Stephanie McMahon came out, suspended him. So, that's the storyline, basically. You could have Lesnar off the air for a while now, and while Rollins and Reigns go at it, which would be a good, kind of a good feud. Two former Shield members, and, there's any number of ways you could, have that play out. You could fake it out, like you could have Reigns and Rollins go at it, and then Ambrose comes in, and then, they do some swerve where the Shield reunites, and maybe Lesnar comes in and takes out the Shield. I don't fucking know. I mean, these storylines get so confusing. I mean, but, that's why we all love it. And, all in all, I would say this was a really good WrestleMania. I mean, I would give it a 9 out of 10. And really, the only point I deduct, and I won't say my reasons again, but, it's just the Sting match just makes no fucking sense to me. And not that, obviously it's, it's not, pro wrestling isn't necessarily something that you could, try and make sense out of and come away pleased with your thought deductions. But it's just kind of a bummer because I'm a WCW guy. And, Sting's 30 years in the business. I thought that you could have given him his moment in the sun. And, the next Monday night on Raw, they like I said, they didn't even give him like 5 minutes on Raw. They gave him like the segment after Raw's off the air, and you got to turn into the fucking WWE network, and you got Sting in a segment with, this with Bo Dallas. And, that's kind of like, what infuriates me is that Triple H puts himself in a segment with The Rock, literally 15, 20 minutes after their WrestleMania match, and Sting's doesn't appear again on WrestleMania, doesn't appear on Raw, and you got him in there with a fucking jobber like Bo Dallas. So it's like, what on earth did Sting, either Sting as a bad manager or a bad agent, or he just too many chair shots with Ric Flair and Steamboat at Starrcades, where he didn't care what his presentation would be to the WWE audience. So, good WrestleMania. I would say my favorite parts of it really were, there's not a lot of bad to take out of it. I mean, the matches were great. I mean, the ladder match was awesome. The Battle Royal was kind of funny. The tag team, match was really good, and all those guys had good teamwork. Rollins Norton was a great match. Triple H and Sting. I mean, there were some cool spots in that, like when Sting delivered his patented drop, kick, and the crowd, pretty much the whole stadium was like, "You still got it." That was pretty cool. And Triple H sold for him. But just you know how I feel about that match. And the Diva match was really good, fast but good. And I think The Undertaker and Bray Wyatt was good, albeit very short. Cena and Rusev right before that was good. I thought their match was a good amount of time. Like, it wasn't too long, wasn't too short. I thought the Triple H, Stephanie McMahon, Rock, Rousey segment was good, but it took a lot of time, which kind of made it seem like, the Undertaker and Wyatt's entrances were a smidge rushed. And, Lesnar and Reigns' entrances were, seems like it was after that Triple H segment. It's like, all right, let's just get this over with. Me personally, I could do without the music segments. Nothing against Travis Barker and Skylar Grey and Kid Ink, but it just, I don't know. If I want to see them, I'll go to one of their concerts. I'm at WrestleMania to see wrestling. I'm not quite sure about, the Sting entrance, as this wasn't a Guitar Center drum clinic. And then, Triple H gets this killer fucking, movie-like entrance. Just have them walk out to their theme music and, let's just get going. And really the only other thing to talk about is the Hall of Fame, which was Saturday night. It was an interesting group of inductees. And once again, I don't want to get too fucking technical here. I mean, like I said, people always argue about what the qualifications are to get into the WWE Hall of Fame. And I think it's just, if you're a pro wrestler and you get to 50 years old, you just get in alone on your survival instincts if you're alive. And this year's group was an eclectic bunch, I guess you'd say. The Bushwhackers, Larry Zbyszko, Alundra Blaze, many of you may know better as Medusa, Tatsumi Fujinami, Rikishi, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Kevin Nash, and Connor the Crusher McCulloch, who was a WWE fan who was taken way too early from us. And of course, I guess you'd say the headlining inductee was Macho Man Randy Savage. I mean, I don't know, the Bushwhackers. Seeing the Bushwhackers get in, it's kind of like seeing Dolph Lundgren get an Oscar. It's like, huh? But they were more of a humorous tag team. For the kids, I think. Larry Zbyszko, old school wrestler, but I don't know. I mean, I don't think a lot of the fans, especially the younger fans, know who he was. I mean, Jesus, he's older than Sting. Medusa was great. She's probably most known for showing up on Monday Nitro with the women's championship belt and dropping it in the trash, which probably got her on Vince McMahon's shit list. And, you had Tatsumi Fujinami, who's a legendary Japanese wrestler, and had some great matches with Ric Flair over there. And under the New Japan Pro Wrestling moniker. And then you had Rikishi, who was kind of like a Yokozuna-like type wrestler. Very good, for a guy that big, he was a very good wrestler. But, his finishing move was the stink face, when he would literally throw you into the turnbuckle and put his ass in your face and rub it. Now, maybe guys like Pat Patterson would enjoy that, but, I guess that gets you into the Hall of Fame these days. And then, of course, Arnold Schwarzenegger. I mean, I don't really associate him with pro wrestling, but hell, I don't really associate him with acting. So, what the hell's the difference? Just get everyone in there, I guess. And then, probably the saddest storyline involving Hall of Fame inductees was Connor McCulloch, who was basically a WWE superfan. And, he got a lot of media attention when he wanted to meet his hero, Daniel Bryan. And, he battled spine and brain cancer and, an awful way to pass. And, it's say what you want about pro wrestling, but, they do, when someone dies in their circle, do amazing tributes. And kind of the cool thing not cool thing about his passing, but he is the receiver of the inaugural Warrior Award, named after, of course, as many of you know, my second favorite pro wrestler, the Ultimate Warrior. And during the nomination ceremony Saturday night, he was inducted by Daniel Bryan and Dana Warrior. And yes, that is the Ultimate Warrior's wife, her real last name. And she gave an amazing speech. And Daniel Bryan also did. Both just, I tell you, I don't cry a lot. I cry at really the end of Bryan's song, which is the story of Brian Piccolo. And I don't know. Sometimes I cry at the end of that Kevin Spacey, Samuel Jackson movie, The Negotiator, which is kind of a semi-obscure movie. But if you don't cry during Daniel Bryan and Dana's speech, it's like you're not human. And because Daniel Bryan got a little bit of criticism for his speech because he said something to the effect of, hey, wrestling's fake, but this is real life. And I'm sure that made Vince McMahon's heart rate go up a little bit. And then you had, of course, Macho Man Randy Savage, long overdue to be inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. And I think a lot of people know why. So, huge rumor that's gone on for probably close to 2 decades that the Macho Man would never, ever get into the Hall of Fame because he had some kind of sexual relationship with Stephanie McMahon when she was, 17, 18 years old. And it is kind of weird, when you look at some of the people who have got into the Hall of Fame, the Coco Bewares and some of these other mid-carders and basic jobbers. And you've got probably second to Hulk Hogan, and you might say Warrior, the most, decorated and well-known wrestler, and he's not in. But, Frankie and Coco Beware are. So I'm not sure who made that happen, but his brother, the genius Lanny Poffo, inducted him. And it's a very good speech. Although I have to confess the Bushwhackers gave a funny speech. Larry Zbyszko, his was, I think he's always thought he was funny. But, his was kind of, it was there. And, Rikishi came out and did the dance with the Usos. And, Schwarzenegger was a politician speech. And Fujinami's was, I don't know if a lot of people knew who he was. But, he did a nice and respectable speech. But my favorite speech definitely was Medusa's. Because she, she kept it real. A little bit of swearing. Paid tribute to several fallen wrestlers. Rick Rude. And who, I hope someday gets in the Hall of Fame himself. And it's kind of hard, you got to really hurry with these inductions because that half these guys and girls aren't going to be alive in 5 years. But, I can't wait for Chris Benoit's induction. Boy, who's going to bring him in? The coroner? But good Hall of Fame, ceremony. WWE always does a good job with that and the presentation. It's pretty neat to look out into the crowd and literally see every living wrestler out there. And, it's funny because, these guys don't really like each other that much, like last year. And I know Vince McMahon did this on purpose. When Warrior was inducted, he had Hulk Hogan in the front row. And, everyone knows if you've seen the Ultimate Warrior's videos on YouTube where he just literally interviews himself talking shit about Hogan, it's pretty funny to watch. So when Hulk Hogan is, I guess, co-inducting, Macho Man, they hated each other. They couldn't stand each other. A lot of people blame Macho Man's demise on Hogan and his bullshit. So when Hogan's said all these great things about Macho Man, that every wrestler who's in the know in that crowd is like, what a bullshitter. It was the same thing last year when, they did those segments with Ultimate Warrior meeting Nash and shaking hands, and him and Jake the Snake. Warrior and Jake the Snake had big time problems, but they seemed a little more genuine. And then they show Hogan and Warrior talking, and Hogan's, knows very well aware of the cameras being there. And he's like, hey, brother, all that stuff. And then, this year, Hogan's paying tribute to his quote unquote buddy Macho Man. And it's like, come on, man. So, next year's induction, I'm assuming it's going to, they're already kind of building for WrestleMania 32 in Texas Stadium. You could tell that they're probably going to build to a Rock Triple H match. Rumors of Sting and The Undertaker, which will be very interesting to me because I think Sting and The Undertaker will probably get into the Hall of Fame, and then have a retirement, a dual retirement match, which I think will be cool. But once again, I don't know. I just don't see Sting coming to the WWE to lose his only 2 matches. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out throughout the course of the year. And, that pretty much wraps up my WrestleMania and Hall of Fame, wrap up. So, every now and then I'll do a wrestling podcast on my own. I'll bring a few of my friends on, and I hope you like this one. Sorry it took a while, but, it's a little overwhelming. I think the Hall of Fame ceremony was like 4 hours. And, when you take into account, from the 2 pre-show matches to WrestleMania, that's like 4 hours. It's hard to wrap up an 8-hour show in a little under or over an hour. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. You know where to find us. iTunes and SoundCloud. Please retweet and favorite when I send out the links. It helps bump up the numbers, and leave a review on iTunes and tell all your friends. And we'll be back next week with a special episode on Eddie Nash, who I've mentioned several times on this podcast, but he is the infamous club owner in the LA music and club scene that has been portrayed in several movies, Boogie Nights and Wonderland. And I'm having a Eddie Nash expert on to talk about this infamous person in the Los Angeles scene. So I hope you tune in and enjoy that one and all the other future episodes of Inappropriate Earl. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, just under my name, Earl Skakel, EarlSkakel. And guys, as always, thank you very much for the support. I do it for you.